Okay. All right, so you should have Schoology ready to go. Other technology needs to be put away. And I want you to pull up Schoology and our calendar here. Oops. And on the calendar you have 2 dates. So, for the purpose of these notes, I'm going to be researching an innovator in my field, which is Sal Khan, who invented Khan Academy. And I found 2 sources on him so far. I need 5 by the end of the day, but so far I found 2. So I'm going to go ahead and document these sources. Now, Ms. Stoller just gave you one of these practice templates, which is loose. Go ahead and make sure you're using that, because you don't want to confuse my sources with your source and put something about Sal Khan on your works cited page. And just write at the top notes, real clear, so you don't accidentally use it in your own paper. So for the source number, we'll say NA. Okay. Now, before we get started, there are a couple things you need to know about the template. Number 1, it's really good for making sure that you get your citation right every time. Because I noticed in first period, I didn't notice it when I picked this source earlier on, but one of my sources is on Gale, and the citation is actually missing something very important that they shouldn't be missing. So this is a good way to check it, because a lot of those citations are born out of algorithms, and computers mess up sometimes. But this is exactly how it should look. Now, when they tell you what goes in each box, like author and then period, it shows you how you're going to actually write out your citation. But it doesn't tell you a couple of key things that you need to remember. Like, when you write the author, you're always going to start with the last name, comma, first name. So write that down. And then on your works cited page, you'll put it in alphabetical order by last name or whatever letter comes first. If there's not an author, then you'll start with the title of the source. All right? The second thing you need to remember is when it comes to the titles, you're going to have to make sure that when you type it, when you type it, you're putting titles of larger works in italics. And if it's a smaller work, like an article, you put it in quotations. So make a note to yourself out to the side here. Put title in quotes, or in our case, since we're handwriting it, we'll underline it. But of course, that means when we type it, we italicize it. So, or underline it. Okay? So, the way this is set up is your first container is always the source itself. The second container is if you found it in something else. And I know that's clear as mud right now, but it'll be clear in a second. Sure. So, you're always gonna have a container 1. That's the actual source itself. For example, if I find an article inside Time magazine, and I'm actually flipping the pages of the magazine, then that's the container. The article is contained in Time magazine, right? And I'm flipping through the pages myself, so then I'll end it at container 1. Because I mean, I don't need to say, oh, I found Time magazine on the rack by the checkout lane at the grocery store. You don't need to get that far. You just need to say, I found the article in Time magazine on this page. End of story. You don't pay any attention to container 2 after that. Now, let's say that it's a Time magazine that was made in 1976. A lot less likely that I'm actually flipping through the pages of a 1976 edition of Time magazine, right? Most likely I found something that old on a database, and they maybe took pictures of the magazine or scanned it in, and I can click through it and I can still see the whole thing, but I'm doing it online, right? Well, then I would cite Time magazine, the article first, because I am still looking at that. But I didn't look at the actual source. I found that source inside of the database, which is like Gale or Galileo or something like that. So that's when the container 2 comes in. So let's look at a source today that just has one container. You're just citing the source itself and totally forget about container 2. So if you go to our agenda slides, then the first one is a Khan Academy source. Okay, so this is coming from the actual Khan Academy website. I went straight there, found it through Google, and it's a little biography about Khan Academy and Sal Khan himself. All right, so the first container is the source itself that I'm looking at. So the title of my source, what is the title of it?
What is the
Khan
history of
Academy?
Academy?
Yeah, what is the history of Khan Academy? So on your sheet that Ms. Dollar passed out, let's go ahead and write that down, which is what it looks like right here. What is the history of Khan Academy? And notice I capitalized everything correctly, and I put it in quotations because it's the name of an article. Now, I kind of skipped ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh man, I just did that totally wrong. I'm sorry. All right, you should have put that in the title of the source. I'm sorry, I got excited. My bad. Here I am trying to clear it up. I'm just making it worse. All right. Now, I skipped over the author because there isn't one. I mean, somebody wrote it, but they don't tell me who. It's probably some copy editor or a team of copy editors that work for Khan Academy's website, whatever. So we just skip that altogether. We don't have to worry about it in the final citation. Okay? Now, where is this article contained? Well, it's contained on the Khan Academy website. So for the title of the container, we can say Khan Academy. We could get super specific because it's obviously under the Help Center. So we could say, and it says actually Khan Academy, Common Questions Resources, About Us. So we could say Khan Academy, and then the subtitle, we could write out About Us to get specific. But that's the title of the container. Now, notice that I skipped other contributors. We don't have any here. We don't know who the contributors are. It's most likely it's just a team of copy editors that just kind of edit it here and there. So we can skip that entirely. There's not a version or a number because this is online. It's not like a print source where we have like, oh, I wrote a book in 1980 and I've updated my book and now it's the second version that you're looking at. This is a website, so we don't have versions and numbers. But we do have the publisher of the site, which is Khan Academy. And for the date, all they gave us is that it was updated a month ago. So we don't have an exact date, so that's fine. It's October now. So it was published in September 2021. That's totally fine. And finally, the last one is looking for our location. If someone's coming in behind us and reading our paper, then where can they find this particular article? For the purpose of this assignment, I'm not gonna make you do that whole entire URL. Please don't write that, that would be a giant waste of time. Just leave it at support.khanacademy.org, that's fine. And that's where I'd stop with this one, because I just literally did a Google search and found this. It took me directly to the website. I didn't go inside of any database or anything like that. And Google is a search engine, not a database. Two different things. You don't have to cite that you searched it on Google. All right, any questions about this one so far? Cool, so I didn't mess it up too bad, where you're like, anything. Okay, so let's look at the second one. Flip your paper over. And now we're gonna look at one that does have two containers. The second one I found inside of Gale. So go back to Schoology on our calendar page and click that second source. And it'll take you to Gale. And now, this one is from a radio show. So it's a recording, I could listen to it. They're also nice enough to like give me the transcript here so I can read it. But this is a radio show. Now, I didn't find this on NPR's website. I don't have any kind of recording of it myself. I found it inside of Gale by doing a search in a database about SalCon. So, I'm gonna have two containers. But go ahead and take a minute and try to fill out what you can for the container one part. Just focus on container one. Looking at all the information they've given you. So do they have an author? Who is the author?
We can't see it.
You gotta pull it up on your computer.
Oh,
So I gave you the link. Do they have an author?
I'm not gonna look at it.
Is it Robert? And the granddaughter, right?
He's the host.
What?
Technically, there's no author, right? It's an interview.
But the publisher was.
There's a publisher,
National Public Radio.
but that's not the author. So we can skip the author part. We don't have to worry about it. When we start our citation, we're just gonna start with the title of the source, which is what?
Math videos go from YouTube Fit to Classroom to
Yep. All right, cool. And we're gonna put that in quotations because it's not the name of the whole show. The whole show is called All Things Considered. This is just one episode of a show. So we're gonna put that in quotations. All right, which leads us to container one. The title of the container would be, this episode is contained in what show?
NPR.
All Things Considered, which is
Oh.
published by NPR, but the name of the show is called All Things Considered. Now, since this is the name of the larger work or the show, we're gonna underline that title. When we type it out, we'll put it in italics. So, now we have title of container is All Things Considered and it's underlined. Okay? Now, there are no other contributors. Again, we don't really have an author here. As far as like the interview and the people in the interview, you don't have to worry about that. Other contributors are people like editors, translators, things like that that are given credit, usually in a written work. All right, so again, with the version and number, typically you only see that in scholarly journals and things like that. We may not see that here. I don't think they divide their episodes up as like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think they just give them titles. So we're gonna skip other contributors and skip version and number. And down at the publisher, we're gonna say that it was published by NPR. Does it give us a publication date?
Yeah, I think so. 2011.
June 23rd, 2011.
Okay, So I saw 2011. Where did you see the June 23rd part?
I went into citation too.
Yeah, they have it in their citation too, so it's somewhere. So we'll put it. But if you just saw 2011, it is totally fine to just put 2011 if they don't give you an actual date. Use whatever they give you. The last source gave us a month and a date. This one gives us an exact date, supposedly. I don't see it on here though. So if you had just put 2011, that would have been fine. All right. Now, for location, we're gonna skip this because we got it in Gale, right? So we're not gonna worry about the location here because we didn't access it through NPR. We probably could go do a Google search and find it in NPR, but that would be a giant waste of our time since it's right here. Now we're at container 2. We gotta say that we found this inside of Gale. So the title of the container is
Gale and contact.
Gale in Context, Biography. So let's write that down. Now, since this is the title of the database, we're gonna underline it because it contains a lot of words inside of it. It's a big title. So it gets underlined, which means when we type it, we're gonna italicize it. Again, there are no other contributors. It's not like this, this interview was originally done in Spanish and we're translating it from Spanish to English and there's a translator involved or something like that. Sometimes that happens, but in our case, it was recorded in English. It's an American show. We don't have to worry about any other contributors. There's no editors. They didn't cut it down or anything like that. Gale is the database. It's online. There's not really a version number. Gale is its own publisher, so you could say Gale for the publisher. But then we don't know when it was added to the database. They don't tell us that. But the location, again, you don't need to put that long, nasty URL. You can stop at the basic one, go.gale.com. All right, so we're left with this. So originally, the information we want was contained in this episode of All Things Considered. And then we found that whole episode and all that information was contained in Gale. And that's how we found it. And then what makes this really helpful is like Tia said, she got some of that information from the citation at the bottom of Gale. But if you notice, it looks a lot like ours. They started with the title of the source. Math videos go from YouTube Hits, Classroom Tool. And if you notice on your sheet, it says under number 2, title of source, period. So they wrote that out and put a period. Then the next thing that comes is the title of a container in box 3. And they put that, All Things Considered, just like we did, followed by a comma in box 3. So they put a comma here. They skipped down. And they skip down to the date. What did they miss? There's something that comes in between there. What should have been written before the publication date? Look at your notes if you're taking them. NPR, the publisher, they missed it. So this is not a correct citation. They need to say that it was published by NPR. Then put a comma and then the date followed by a comma. Then they have the title of the container. They said biography. We said Gale in Context biography. We were just slightly more specific. And then they gave the link, gale.com. But then they gave the full link. For this assignment, if you just give me the original, just the go.gale.com, that's fine. So you see how this helps you to get all the information in the right order and write it out, and you can kind of double check yourself against these citation machines that work with algorithms that aren't always correct. So that's why I want you to use this. So these sheets will count as your source cards. So far, I would have 2. I have this one here, right? And this one here. So source 1 and source 2. We'll start working on the note cards a little bit more later in the week, and I'll give you a little brief lesson on how to do that on Wednesday. But for today, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna let you guys get to work and start finding your 5 sources. Now, at the end of class today, I'll offer to pick up your packets again, and you're welcome to leave them in the classroom. If you need to continue searching for sources at home, because you're afraid you're not gonna meet that deadline, which is Friday the 22nd at the end of class, you need to turn in all your source cards and all your note cards, right? 30 total. If you're afraid you're not gonna make that, you can still work on it at home and leave your packet here, and then just bookmark your sources at home, so that when you come here, you can just quickly write them down. So it's an option for you. Or if you wanna take it back at home, you can. Any questions? All right, cool. I'm gonna turn the lights on. Y'all get to work. If you have any questions, just call one of us over and we'll help you out.
May I go to the restroom?
Yes.